everybody, today's video is on the long-awaited AS9100 Rev D 2016. We waited long enough, right? Well, ironically enough, some of the major changes have more to do with ISO 9001. So in order to get started, you really need to review all of my videos on ISO 9001 and master them. This presentation will then cover the additional changes that the Aerospace, Space, and Defense folks have decided to add to the AS9100 standard. So the key thing is to start immediately with this implementation effort. I know you're going to want to drag your feet. You can't. We don't have enough time. So start immediately in understanding the ISO requirements, and then understanding the AS9100 changes, and then let's put a gap assessment together so you know what you need to do for implementation. Another key thing is to contact your registrar immediately to plan for when you're going to have your upgrade audit. Realize they may tag on a day or so to your regularly scheduled audit in order to accommodate an upgrade audit. Okay, here we go. AS9100 Rev D 2016. Key changes. Review ISO 9001-2015 changes in conjunction with this presentation. This presentation is for companies who are upgrading to the new revision. Refer also to iaqg.org for additional materials. Okay, here we are. ISO 9001 changes. I'm just going to give you a high-level view. First bullet, standard structural and terminology changes. Next, risk-based thinking throughout. Change management, knowledge management, context of the organization, alignment with the QMS and the strategy of the organization, greater flexibility with documentation, and more compatibility with service. Let's look at terminology on slide 3. Products is now products and services. Exclusions is now referred to as non-applicabilities. Documentation is now documented information. Purchasing is now externally provided products and services. Supplier is now external provider. Here are our major AS9100 changes: product safety, counterfeit parts prevention, awareness, human factors, configuration management, independent testing. We'll now break these down and go through them in detail. Before we get started with some of the details, I just want to give you a heads up on some common threads that will be found throughout the standard. You'll see for counterfeit parts, product obsolescence, and product safety, there'll be references throughout the standard. Consider these aspects through context, planning, support, operation, and actions taken as you're developing your quality management system. Here are some new definitions that we'll need to understand. Product safety, the state in which a product is able to perform to its designed or intended purpose without causing unacceptable risk of harm to persons or damage to property. Counterfeit part, an unauthorized copy, imitation, substitute, or modified part, which is knowingly misrepresented as a specified genuine part or an original or authorized manufacturer. Okay, let's look at the details behind product safety. Product safety should be considered throughout the product life cycle. Look for clauses 813, 7.3, 8.1, 8.43, and 8.54 to reference back to product safety. The standard says the organization shall plan, implement, and control the processes needed to assure product safety during the entire product life cycle as appropriate. Examples of how to handle product safety is to understand the hazards, safety critical items, analysis and reporting, communication, and incorporation into the risk management program. Counterfeit parts prevention should be considered throughout the quality management system. The purpose is to mitigate effects of growing counterfeit fraudulent product in the industry. Look for clauses 8.1.4, 8.3.3, 8.4.2, 8.4.3, and 8.7. The standard says the organization shall plan, implement, and control processes appropriate to the organization and the product for the prevention of counterfeit or suspect counterfeit part use and their inclusion in products delivered to the customer. Let's continue on counterfeit prevention. We should consider ensuring we have training and awareness throughout the organization, that throughout design and purchasing there's a parts obsolescence monitoring program, that we've established controls for acquiring externally provided product from the original or authorized manufacturer, authorized distributors, or other approved sources, for assuring traceability of parts and components to the original or authorized manufacturers, verification and test methodologies to detect counterfeit parts, things like parts identification or marking, testing, or chemical analysis. The monitoring of counterfeit parts reporting from external sources such as GUIDEP, and quarantine and reporting of suspect or detected counterfeit parts. Some examples to look for are false identification of marking or labeling, false identification of grade, serial number, date code, documentation, or performance characteristics. For reporting, consider monitoring reporting from external sources, quarantine and reporting of internal instances, and appropriate government and industry reporting systems. What is the escalation process? Also, segregation and control. Ensure products are not reintroduced into the supply chain. This is the bottom line. We have to contain counterfeit parts once we've identified them. Now, many of you would have received some counterfeit prevention requirements through flow-down requirements. So look a little bit closer at your flow-down from your customer purchase orders. Okay, the next addition has to do with the clause on awareness. So in addition to the ISO 9001 requirements, employees must be made aware of relevant QMS documented information and changes. Also, their contribution to product or service conformity, their contribution to product safety, and the importance of ethical behavior. What is ethical behavior? Well, the standard's not going to tell you exactly how to define it, but organizations should define their ethical behavior policy and also consider any contractual flow-down requirements. Consider things like the law, regulations, internal policies, conflicts of interest, intellectual property agreements, invitations or favors, and communication requirements. An additional requirement is human factors. The requirement falls under the corrective action clause. In corrective action, there's a requirement to include human factors considerations in the root cause and corrective action. Consider people and how they interface with the process, psychological effects, personality, stress, fatigue, distraction, as well as interaction with other persons, equipment, facilities, procedures, and data. How has there been a human factors influence over the potential root cause of the defect or the nonconformance that has occurred? Look for clauses 7.1.4 and 8.5.1G. Now, the next slide is on verification of purchased products and services. Other presentations you will see on key changes does not necessarily include this slide, but I added it because I thought it was significant. So within the purchasing process, we're required to identify risks associated with suppliers of products and services. We're also required to do some verification of our purchased product. We need to include inspection and periodic testing for mitigation when there is high risk of nonconformities and/or counterfeit. Also, when supplier test reports are utilized, the organization shall implement a process to evaluate the data in the test reports. When raw material is a significant operational risk, a process to validate the accuracy of the test reports needs to be in place. Many of you were already doing this because there was a flow-down requirement that kind of took the spot of where the standard, Rev C standard, dropped this requirement. Now, there are other subtle changes. We will need to perform an academic gap assessment at the beginning of the implementation process or as part of our internal audit process to catch all of the changes that have occurred within the standard. Don't skimp at this stage. We need to do our homework. Look for a clause-by-clause PowerPoint that will be coming to you very soon to give you the details behind the changes by clause. Okay, are we ready to get started? There's no time to procrastinate. First, we need to understand the ISO 9001-2015 requirements. I will help you with that. Next, we'll need to understand just those additional changes to AS 9100, the ones we went over. We're going to perform a gap assessment and then dig right into our internal audit process. Okay, that's all for now. Look for my PowerPoint on AS 9100 changes clause by clause, and together we'll work through this process. We can do this. See you soon.